Aloha and welcome to a screencast on array processing. So we've been talking about arrays, what they are, and being able to store data and use the data in an array. Now we want to talk a little bit more about how you would process the data in an array. So there's a couple of different things that we're going to look at here today. You might want to have the lab open so you can see what kinds of problems you might be faced with. And of course you might want to have NetBeans open, making sure that it works and have it set up to do some work. So I think maybe we'll just start out by creating a new, we'll call it processing. Oh wait, got to start a project here. Whoops, PHP application. We'll call it processing arrays, array play. And local web server, that looks good. And we'll close this. I don't want to mess up my invoice. And let's make sure that that runs. Set that to NetBeans. Okay, I think we're ready to go. Good. Okay, that's all working. Let's get started. Okay, the first thing you want to look at is that you process an array usually by iterating through it, and typically that means you're going to use a loop of some sort. If you have a numeric array, let's say we have an array called angles, which has a bunch of numbers in it, let's just say, a very common way to iterate through the array is with a for loop, and that's because typically by convention a numeric array will start at index 0 and then you'll just go through it all the way to the count. Now why it's important to look at that is since we're starting at 0, we will end at the count, just one before the count. So we don't want to go to equals the count. So if I have elements, if I have 3 elements in count, then the indices are 0, 1, and 2. So if I let this go to less than or equal to, then it's going to end up going, it's going to overshoot it by 1, which is a very common thing to do. And so when I go through it, let's just check this out. Let's just copy this and put it in here. Just for simplicity, I'm going to get rid of all that stuff. Okay, and paste that here. And I'll make an array $angles equals array, 3 and 2 and 4. Okay, I don't know what those are. And if I run this here, I'm going to put a BR here so I get some new lines. You see angle 0 is 3, angle 1 is 2, angle 2 is 4. Again, it's printing out I, where I is the index, 0, 1, and 2, and then angles square bracket will give me what's inside there. So this is iterating through the entire thing. Unfortunately, if I have an associative array, say products, where you see for each products key equals value, you'll see that this doesn't work because I'm going to copy this, put it over here. It won't work because angles is a numeric array. I don't know what the keys are. So let's just say I create a $products. Let's say the product name is sushi, and let's take another one where its price is, I'll say kind. I forgot the association there. Let's say it's ahi. Okay. Now this is saying, it's giving me a warning about something. I'm not quite sure what. Let's see if this works. Oh yeah, I've got a problem here. Let's see. Well, first of all, the problem here, oh, I need to take this, make that a function. That's why I have a $sign there. So the problem here is that these aren't numbers, so I can't refer to them by just counting. I have to go through them. So to deal with that, PHP has a special loop called for each. And the way it works is that you say for each array products here as $key associates with value. And what it's going to do is it's going to go one by one through each key and value here and store those values in the variables $key and $value. And then it's going to go to get the next one, which is kind and ahi. You put that there until it runs out of things. Later on, I'll show you that this is just shorthand for another kind of for loop. But right now, you'll just use this to go through the arrays. And you see I have a little problem here. I think I have maybe some sort of special character. You'll see that there's a little typo in the slides here, and that if you see I'm looking at print key dot, which concatenates with the value key, concatenate with this, concatenate. I'm missing a concatenate there. Okay, so now if I run that, you see key name has value, sushi, key kind has value. Oops, another thing I forgot to do is make it, put a new line in there. Let's make it look like that. And key name has value sushi, key kind has value ahi. So you can see it went through this associative array. Okay, go ahead and take a look at Lab 1 if you want to. Now, one of the things you may recall is when I said that we talked about arrays, is I said that one thing that's nice in PHP is that an array can hold any kind of data. And an array itself is a data type. And so an array can actually hold other arrays. So the way I like to think about that is that we saw it as like an array is like a box of cookies. The elements were the cookies inside there, and the array was the box. Well, cookie boxes come shipped in a container, let's say a big crate. And so if I take a crate and I fill it up with cookie boxes, and each cookie box is filled with cookies, that's kind of like an array of arrays, because the crate contains all these arrays of cookies. So how is that useful? Well, that's useful because we can create multi-dimensional arrays. So let's just copy and paste this. And when we do this, you're going to notice something a little unusual. And that I have all these rows that didn't come over okay. So I'm going to have to put these in by hand. Like that, like that. Another thing you may have noticed is you see these little squigglies here. What that's saying is that there are some hidden characters here that aren't printing, and that's going to actually mess things up. That came over when I copied and pasted from PowerPoint, so you have to be careful. If I try to run this, I'm going to get all kinds of errors. See all that? And that's again because I copied and pasted from PowerPoint, which sometimes doesn't work very well. So what I like to do is, if I'm going to copy and paste from my slides here, let's just copy that again. I don't know why it's not letting me copy it, but I'll do Control-C. What you want to do is open up like a Notepad or some sort of text editor. So I like Notepad++. And what this is an editor that only accepts text. So when I paste this here, you see now it shows up all that junk. See these special characters that were there? And now I won't have to worry about them accidentally getting in there. So I'm just going to take those out. So if I copy and paste it into my text editor here first, and there are other ways to deal with this. I can clean it up, make sure it's all text, and then go back to NetBeans and paste. And you see those little guys are gone. And now I do a run, and everything's good. It says AFH. Okay, well, let's take a look at what I got here. I'm going to comment that out and comment this one out and comment that out. And now run it. When I run it, I see that I get the letter A. Let's make that a little bigger. I'm getting the letter A, so it's echoing $matrix 0, 0 here. Why did I get that? Well, it's because I'm actually accessing two arrays here. Take a look what I have here. First, I have row 1, 2, and 3. These are just regular numeric arrays, each with 3 elements. So that's our box of cookies. Then I create another array that I'm going to store in matrix, which consists of row 1, row 2, and row 3. In other words, these are the cookies. These are the boxes of cookies, and I'm putting them in another box. So the box of the box of cookies is called matrix, so it's the crate. And so I've created a multi-dimensional array. And so how do I use it? Well, $matrix square bracket 0 refers to the 0th item on the matrix on the array referred to by matrix. So in other words, row 1. So row 1 is right up here, and now what I'm doing is that this really is row 1. And so in row 1, which is an array, I'm accessing element 0. Since row 1 is an array, I'm accessing element 0, which is the letter A, and there it is. So this is really same as $row 1 square bracket. Okay? Now, oh, not that. That's not really that. It's this one is really the same. There we go. Now let's comment that out, and let's take a look at the second line. Let's see if we understand this right. What will this print out? Well, $matrix square bracket 1 is going over to $matrix 0, 1. That's row 2. And then on row 2, I'm going to element 2. So here's row 2, element 0, 1, 2. It should print out F. Let's see. Sure enough, it does. Excellent. I think I got that. How about this one? Now, notice last time I printed out $matrix 1, 2. Is that going to be the same as $matrix 2, 1? Well, no. Let's go through and see what we're supposed to get. $matrix 2 means I go over to matrix here. I go to 0, 1, 2. That really refers to row 3. Row 3 is an array, and I'm going to get element 1, 0, 1. So this is not going to print F as before. It's actually H. And sure enough, there it is. How do I change an element in a multidimensional matrix? Well, just like the way you would change anything in any matrix. What I'm going to do is just refer to the first matrix and then get the element on the second matrix that I want to change. So I'm going to refer to, say, matrix 2. That's the second element on matrix. So 0, 1, 2. That's row 3. And then I'm going to look at element 2 on that. 0, 1, 2. So it's this letter I. And I'm going to assign, so in this slot here, I'm going to replace it with a capital I. Let's see if that works. I'm going to do a var dump $matrix. And saving. And sure enough, I'm looking down at my element 0, 1, 2, right? 0, 1, 2. It's the letter I. Okay, excellent. I hope you got that. Moving on. Now, multidimensional arrays come in a lot of different flavors. That was a double numeric multiple array or a two-dimensional array with two numeric or indexed arrays. But there's nothing stopping you from using an associative array or even associative and numeric arrays together. In fact, that's quite useful, say for example, printing out your invoice or products in a table. Let's just say we have some matrices that store product information. Product 1 might be an array with a name, gumball, small gumball, and a price 2 cents. I might think about medium gumballs at 5 cents and large gumballs at 7 cents. So these are three associative arrays. They have all the same keys and they only differ in the values. It's very important that they have the same keys because I'm going to refer to printing out a product as something that has a name and a price. So if I take those product arrays and I stick them on another array called products, 1, 2, and 3. What's happening here is I'm creating a numeric array. So product 1 is at 0, product 2 is at element 1, and product 3 is at element 2. And then I'm going to loop through this one at a time and print out the name and the price of each product. Let's try that out. Copy. Now I'm going to put this in Notepad to make sure that I don't get any weird characters. Okay, and I try that out. And I'm getting an error. You see the little thing there? Even though I did print it out and cut and paste it, it seemed to have some strange character that it didn't know about. It put this weird question mark. So let's delete that. Again, you always have to be careful when you're copying and pasting from other place sources, especially Microsoft products, because they might insert weird characters. Okay, so let me make that a little smaller. You see that my loop, what it did is I went from 0 up to the number of products, and I printed out the product number element on the array, and then I print out its name and its price. And you see product 0 is small gumball, cost 2 cents, product 1 is medium gumball, 5 cents, and you can see how useful this would be in maybe putting things into a table or creating an invoice. The nice thing about this is the way I've done it is I can store my information quite easily. I can add a new product by just creating another array. I'll call this extra large. I'll call it jumbo gumball. Jumbo gumball, and let's call that, say it's 17 cents. And I hit save and watch. It'll immediately adapt to this. Oops, I got to put it on my array here. There. So all I have to do is define my product and put it on the array, and presto, there, it shows up. I can delete arrays, I can delete products by just taking them off the array. So that's pretty convenient. There's one small new thing that you haven't seen before, and that I'm inside double quotes here. And since I'm inside double quotes, I might get confused. I'm using double quotes because I wanted to expand the values in the variables for convenience. But I wanted to expand the value of the array element $product square bracket $I square bracket quote name. The problem is that inside double quotes, PHP isn't sure whether these square brackets, do you mean them to be the characters square brackets, or do you mean them to be the array element? So to avoid confusion, you put these curly braces around there, and then PHP knows, you mean this to be the array element to expand it. If this is confusing, just don't use double quotes. So you could literally just use single quotes. Let's just change this into a single quote thing. So if I do a single quote, I'll just use concatenate. So concatenate that, concatenate that, concatenate that. And you see now I'm just eliminating all the... Here, let's put this on the second line here. Concatenate that. It's a little bit more trouble, as you can see. Okay. So all I'm doing is I'm getting rid of the double quotes, and because of that I won't expand variables inside the quotes, so I have to just concatenate them in. So that should be a dot quote like that. So let's check. String, concatenate, I, concatenate, is, concatenate this array, this element. I delete that. Concatenate that string, concatenate that array element, concatenate that string. And sure enough, it gives me the same thing. Okay, you'll notice that the NetBeans is complaining a little bit. It puts these little light bulb warnings, and what that's saying is that it says for loops must use braces. This is suggesting to you that by convention, even though I don't need braces for a single line for loop, it's probably a good idea to do that, and it's just letting me know. So if you don't like those warnings, you can put the braces in, and they'll go away. There. And I have another thing here saying unnecessary closing delimiter. I don't know if that's actually unnecessary. Actually, what would happen if I delete that? Still seems to work. Interesting. Okay, didn't know that. Learn something new all the time. Okay, so take a look at lab number 2 and see if that's something you think you can do. Now, that's ways that you can go through arrays and use multidimensional arrays. And you can actually create higher dimensional arrays. You don't always have to create two-dimensional arrays. You can put arrays on arrays on arrays on arrays, and you just keep adding square brackets to access things. There's other things you might want to do is that at times you might want to know whether something exists in an array before you try using it. Because if you try to access an array element that doesn't exist, you usually get a warning, or it could be give you some sort of unexpected results. So let's copy this code here. And let's see, did I get any weird characters? Yes, right here. I don't like this. Because I don't like this, I'm going to cut this, and I'm going to go back to my notepad. I'm going to paste that in there, and I had an extra curly brace there. There, let's go back. Turned out that wasn't a problem at all. And oops, I'm fumbling around here. There. Okay. Product is small gumball. So what happens is I've defined an array with a name, small gumball, filling, null, and price. And what I'm doing is using this function called arrayKeyExist. Now arrayKeyExist says give me a string, in this case name, and look to see if it's a key in the array product, and return true if it does or false if it doesn't. So in this case, name is a key in the product array, so it returns true, and therefore it prints this out. Notice what happens if I look for name X. If I look for name X, let me remove this breakpoint. Then you see I get nothing because name X is not a key in my array, so it returns false, prints nothing. Notice that if I look for filling, it will return product is small gumball. Why? Because filling is a key in product. But the interesting thing about filling is its value is set to null, which means it actually has no value. So even though there is nothing in the slot, it still has a key, and therefore it's a key in the array. Now this is a bit different than looking at something called isSet. So isSet is a function that will ask the question, is a variable set or not, or is an element set? So let's try that out. Let's try isSet and isSet product. And I don't want to look at product. I want to say isSet square bracket product name. Now, so what I'm saying is this is the element this is going to be the element whose key is name in product, so that's going to be small gumball, and it is set, so is set will return true, and it will run and say the product is small gumball. Now notice what happens if I say is set filling. Nothing printed. Well, wait a second. Filling is set by null value in product. Well, actually, null is nothing. So in other words, the element product filling is actually set to nothing, or the null value. So that's not set, and therefore this returns false. So you can see array key exists will tell me whether the key is there, but if I'm just looking for an element that's set, then it may not work. And this happens quite frequently. A lot of PHP programs will use isSet when they really mean to use array key exists. Go ahead and look at Lab 3 and see if that's something you can do. Now there are other times for which you want to see if an element exists in an array, but other times you want to search for something. So if you want to see whether actually an element exists, not just whether a value is set or whether a key exists, but you want to actually look for a particular element, you can use the inArray function or the array search. The difference is that inArray returns true or false if it's in the array, and array search actually will tell you where something is if it exists. So let's just take this, copy it, and do a paste. And again, we're still using our product array here. So now we're saying in array small gumball $product. That asking the question that is small gumball a value in the array product? And here it is. It's assigned to the name key, so it is a value. So this should return true, and it should print we sell small gumballs. Oops, I got a little error here. See this little once again, I got fouled up. I'm going to cut that and go back to here and paste it. And see that question mark there? It was another hidden character. So I got messed up. You got to be careful when cutting and pasting. Okay, we sell small gumballs. What happens if I look for the element 4 cents? Well, I can look for 04 here, and it is a value. I don't need the 0.04 because 0.04 is the same thing as 0.4 in value. And see, it says we sell small gumballs. If I look for 05, I get nothing. Actually, let's make this a little easier to read. I'm going to say else print we don't sell that. By the way, I'm using single quotes here, so if I use an apostrophe, I need to put this backslash in front of it so that it doesn't get confused, so it thinks it's an apostrophe and not a delimiter. There. Now it says we don't sell that. What happens if I search for null? Curiously enough, if I look for the empty value is a value in my array because it's set by filling, and it says we sell small gumballs. So even though isSet won't work, you can search for empty values in your array, which can be kind of useful sometimes. So let's take a look at, now this is in array, let's look at array search. In fact, let's not do an if, let's just do a var dump. And you'll see why I want to do a var dump. And let's do a var dump small. I'll just copy this so I don't make a mistake. There. So I'm searching for small gumball in product. Now actually I should look at this to see whether I have the syntax right. I may actually have this wrong. So let me see if I can bring up the editor. Let's see, I'm going to look at it on my thing here. Okay, it is correct. So I'm var dumping array search, not array. There it is, array search. It says needle and array haystack. So it takes a needle, meaning a string that I'm looking for, or value, not any value that I'm looking for the array, and what array I'm looking in. Okay, running. And you can see that it found that small gumball was in the array, and it returned the key for where it was found, which is name. Similarly, I can actually look for where's the null value. It says the null value is associated with the key filling. And of course, I could find what happens if I look for 0.05, which 0.5, which doesn't exist. False, meaning it's not in the array. It searched and couldn't find it. The same thing, by the way, holds for numeric arrays. So I've made this a numeric array, and let's say I search for the value 04, except for instead of returning the key, it'll return the index. See, it found 04 at index 2, 0, 1, and 2. Go ahead and take a look at Lab 4 and see if that's something you can do. But then again, we will be working on these in class. Okay, so another thing you might want to do is when you have an array is to order it by some way. Now this is a little bit unusual. There's different ways to order things, and so there's a variety of different sorting functions like sort, asort, and ksort. So sort is going to just do a numeric sort. Asort is going to sort, I think, associative arrays, and ksort, so it's going to sort the associations by dictionary order, I think. Ksort is going to sort the keys and not the values. There's a whole bunch of other things too. Let's take a look at this. Let's copy this. And now I'm going to var dump $A. So let's do a before and after so I can compare them. So the array beforehand had 3 at 0, A at 1, etc., just exactly in this order. Then I call a sort function, and it doesn't return anything. It actually sorts all the things in the array. And now you see that things are in order, 1, 2, 3, A, B, C. So it actually renumbered things. It used different indices for that. So originally 3 was at 0, and after sorting, you see that 3 is now at element 2. So you have to be careful, and that sort will actually change the array. It changes the indices. Another thing you have to be careful about that is if I have keys, let's just say key 1 here, and you look what it does to, let's just take that out there, key 1 like that. You see what it did? It still sorted things, but it removed all the keys. So notice it says 1, 2, A, B, C, and now this is the integer. So notice these were strings. Now it's the integer 3, which is actually comes after the characters 1, 2, 3, A, B, C, and it removed the key and put it at 5. If I put the quote back here, you'll see that now 1, 2, 3, right, is now lexicographic. So be careful that the keys basically are ignored. It just ignores them. So you have to be careful. And there is a difference between the number and the string, say 2. See, the number 2 will be ordered after. Okay, that's fun with sort. Okay, so just be careful with sort. There's a lot of different sort functions. So there are times when you're actually going to want to get all the keys and all the values. So there are some functions for doing that. So let's just copy this and see what it does. There's a function called array keys and array values that returns all the arrays keys and all the arrays values. You're probably wondering, why would you want to do this? Well, let's take a look. If I say keys equals array keys $product, and then do a var dump $keys, you'll see that I get an array of all the keys, name, filling, and price. Name, filling, and price. And it put them in a numeric array. Similarly, I can create a values array, and I could call it whatever I want. I just happen to call it array keys and array values just because, well, that's what they are for now. Nothing special. And if I dump values here, you'll see I get all the values: small gumball, solid, and 004. There. So the question is, why would I want that? Well, this is actually the way that the for each function works. So for each function actually is shorthand for this. For $I equals 0, $I is less than count of $keys, $I plus plus. So that's our usual for loop for going through an array. And now if I say $key equals $keys $I, and $values, or value, equals $value $I, I can now get all the keys and values from an associative array. I'm now going to process an associative array using the two numeric arrays. These two numeric arrays are called parallel arrays because they are parallel with each other. The element 0 for the key goes with element 0, the value. Element 1 for keys goes to element 1, this one, 2, 2, etc., etc. Okay, let's make this, put a BR in front of that. And now you'll see that, oops, I have a little error somewhere. Key is keys, value is values. There we go. There. Key, name, gumball, filling, solid, price. So in other words, this is the same as for each $product as $key associates with $value. So in other words, this statement is just shorthand for doing this. There are times when you want to remove and insert elements. Okay, so let's just say I've got my array of products, small gumball, solid, and price. Let's take that there. And if you wanted to say remove this solid element, one way you could do it is simply just create a new array. say this is a filling, it says no filling, we just say create a new array, put product 0 on the first element and product 2, which is this one, the price, on the second element, and just ignore this. Well, sometimes that's inconvenient, especially if you want to delete more than one element or if you want to do it programmatically. So another way to do that is you could use the array splice function, and also it does some other stuff which allows you to not only remove things, but you can replace items. You can also insert things too, and I'll show you what the difference between this and some other functions. Okay, so we got our products, and now I'm having some troubles with my view here. I don't know why it's doing that. Okay, I don't want that. There we go. All right, and now let's use, okay, so let's take a look. Let's do a var dump dollar product. Okay, there. And let's just say, well, one way to, let's just say if I want to eliminate a value, I could just set it equal to null. So if I say product 1, which is solid, equals null, what does that do? Well, that does exactly what I told it to do. It put the value null in slot 1. So even though there's no value in there, there's still a slot for it. Now I have an empty thing. Well, there actually is another way of getting rid of things. There's a way to remove a variable from PHP, which we haven't talked about, called unset. So what happens if I do unset, if I unset the element? If I unset the element, then you see it actually did remove it, but now I'm missing the indice 1, which may cause some problems. So maybe a better way to do this is to use array splice. So let's go copy those. Oops. Copy. And let's paste this here like that. And let's just look at one at a time here. So if I do array splice product 1, 1, that says in the array product, starting at position 1, remove one element. And notice that it did remove solid, and unlike unset, it actually renumbered the indices. So it's back to 0 and 1, which is probably more what I want. Similarly, let's try doing a replacement. So starting at element 1, replace one value with hollow. And notice I still have, I didn't remove anything here, I just replaced the solid with hollow. And lastly, let's insert something. So here, notice that I said starting at position 1, don't remove or replace anything, insert the value logo. And see, at 1, now there's logo, and it pushed all the other two down, and it renumbered everything. So array splice is a very useful function for manipulating your arrays. Sometimes you want to manipulate multiple things at elements at once, and we call those vector functions. So let's take a look at some vector functions like merge, unique, intersect, and diff. Let's start out with some basic stuff, and let's just look at num1, comma, $num2 like that, and make sure that works. Oops, I guess I can't var dump two things at once. Let's just var dump one. What happened here? Oh, it's nums. Nums1, comma, nums2. Okay. Nums, $nums1, $nums2. I guess I can't do that. Well, let's just look at one then. Okay, so what would happen? Let's try a simple vector function that adds all the values in here. So as you might think, there's a function to do that, and it's called ArraySum. See, ArraySum will sum all of elements in nums1. And I run that, and I get 20, which is this 5 plus 5, which is 10, 4 plus 1, which is 15, 2 plus 3, which is another 5, 20. Similarly, I could look at nums2. Doesn't make a difference. $35. Okay. There's a whole variety of these functions, and you might want to look them up in www.php.net. If you go here and you just look up array, you'll see a whole bunch of different functions that you can use. Array diff, array merge, array, all these different things, all these different functions. If you're wondering where I'm getting all this stuff from, I'm just kind of browsing through the php.net file. Let's just look at one useful function, array merge. And if I do array merge $nums1 with $nums2, you can see what it did is it took all the elements in nums1 and combined them with a nums2. I could look at array diff nums1 num2, and that's going to take the difference. It's going to say, give me all the things that are in 1 but not in 2. So it says 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4 are in nums1. 5 and 5, that happens to be in num2. And so that's the difference. And it ignores 6, 7, and 8. I can also do the reverse. It depends on the order I put these in. And you can see 6, 7, and 8 are all the things that are in here. They have 5 in common, and it ignores the 1, 2, 3. So this is kind of looking like, A minus B versus B minus A. Okay, so you can play with some of these things on your own. There's unique elements, get all the unique elements in an array, intersection, difference we looked at, merge, and there's a whole bunch of other things. So take a look at Lab 5. And that's all I have for you, so I hope you enjoyed this, and you'll become, before you know it, an array master.